Hello, my name is Nancy Young, and welcome to another episode of Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young, a program that highlights the positive voices within our local communities and how they're impacting and uplifting our world one person at a time. Now, before we get started today, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Today, we'll be highlighting your voice through giving back to your community. Our guest today is from Tracy, California. Her name is Dr. Clara Styles. Dr. Clara C. Styles, originally from Illinois, has lived in California for more than 23 years. She is the CEO and president of CDS Associates. Her past background is in education. She was a teacher and moved on to be the deputy superintendent, on to be the senior vice president and regional operations officer. She holds several degrees, including a bachelor's in elementary education, a master's in administration and supervision, and a doctorate in education leadership and higher education. She serves on several boards here in our Tracy community, including the vice president of Tracy Senior Association, the executive board vice president for Sow a Seed Community Foundation, past president for Tracy African American Association, a mentor as a part of the Student Discovery Program. She's also a part of the Make a Difference Day and many other boards and activities here within our city. She has many awards and recognitions for the work that she does, including Outstanding Working Woman, Woman of the Year, Community Champion, Outstanding Educator, Personal Achievement, and Citizen of the Year. At this time, help me welcome our guest, Dr. Clara C. Styles.
Hi, Nancy. It's good to see you. Thank you so much. I'm honored that you have asked me to join you today.
Well, thank you for coming today. I'm so excited that I get to actually interview one of my mentors and one of my inspirations. And so, as this world just keeps turning day by day, it seems like some people just seem to rise to the top, while others just seem to kind of fade into the shadows in the background. But there are quiet forces that's behind the scenes that's inspiring people and motivating people through education, through mentoring, through whatever aspirations that they have to help push people to their purpose. And I find that you are one of those people. You're one of those forces. So your motto that I know of, that I've seen for years is, okay, make sure I say this right because it's very simple. It says, be the difference. So tell me about that. How does that define you?
Okay, so, and that's really important how you say it, be the difference, not make a difference. Because we hear of, we watch, we actually do it ourselves, we try to make a difference. And we can make a difference by talking to people, by inspiring people, by encouraging people. But my belief is that be the difference means that you've got to put some work into it. You've got to get in there and do something to make it happen. And that's why my theme is my motto, and I use it a lot. Be the difference. And even when I was principal in school, I would talk to teachers about being the difference. And so for educators, we can often be the difference between a life of success and a life of unsuccess for children. We can literally be the difference. It's about
Absolutely.
doing it.
So education is so important. I know that's part of your background and just being that difference. I think all of us can probably think of a teacher that stood out. I can think of several at key points in my life, beginning with my first grade teacher, Mrs. Benny, how she made a difference by being the difference in my life and helping to push me and to learn and to get that thirst for learning and understanding. And it just has guided me throughout all of my life. But that setting started when I was 6 years old. So let's talk about education. So that is your background. Tell me a little bit about your educational background leading into education. What inspired you to do that?
So I enjoyed reading, always have, and math. But if I could do my life over, I'm not sure that I would go into education. I would probably have gone into law. But at the time and in the area where I grew up, as an African American female, I wasn't presented with a lot of opportunities. And so it was like nursing or education. And so I went into education, became a teacher. But one of the things I discovered was that for me, teaching is like a calling. It's so natural, it's so easy. And I did my student teaching in my hometown in Illinois, and then was hired to go back and to integrate a school. And so I taught third and fourth grade in a school where there was nobody, including janitors, cooks, other teachers who looked like me, and I had no students who looked like me. And it was a school where the more advanced academically students were grouped in what was called a combination class. So I taught third and fourth grade.
Okay.
And I had 32 kids for the first 7 years of my career. I had 16 third graders and 16 fourth graders. But the school was also in a very privileged area of the community. So I didn't know anything about disciplinary problems or our kids who couldn't do what you wanted them to do or couldn't bring to school what you wanted them to bring. So my first 7 years as an educator were kind of storybook. I share that because the impact it had on me throughout my life was that I have had very high expectations. Understand, these parents expected their kids to come to school to learn, but they also expected you to teach them. And so when I went from that school, I went to another school in the center of town, very cross-sectional group of kids. But what I did was I didn't lower my expectations, and I found that kids and parents will rise to your expectations. And that has driven me from being a teacher in a small community of 16,000 people to being in a district at 5,000 people to being a part of a national system with 300,000 kids.
Right.
So my expectations have remained high, and you've probably heard that expression. It's very hard to rise to low expectations.
Mm.
And so I have high expectations, and somehow people seem to rise to those expectations. And whether those people are teachers or administrators or kids, because you believe, and I believe that we can all do more than we do. People seem to do it. I used to teach my kids. I taught my third grade kids probably at a fourth and fifth grade level, and my fourth grade kids at a fifth and sixth grade level. And I would tell them, people don't think you can learn this, but I know you can.
The setting, the expectation.
Right.
It
Yes.
makes it easy because you know what you're expected to do. And
Right.
so, if nobody tell you that you couldn't do it, then
Right.
you might
Exactly.
go ahead and do it.
Yep. And even as a principal, I've had very few discipline problems, but my theory was that if you can't handle your discipline problem in your classroom, then bring it to me. Well, who wants to show you they can't handle their discipline problem? So I had very few disciplinary problems, but my teachers worked together because they cared, but they also knew that I cared. And as a principal, for example, I had a rule in my schools that there was no shop talk in the teacher's lounge at lunchtime. The reason is I think that you should bring something fresh to the classroom at 1 o'clock every day. If you go into that teacher's lounge and you spend that 30 minutes griping and complaining, you walk back into that classroom and you're all upset. You dump that on my kids. And for me, that's just not okay.
Right. So then you'll be fresh to give the students
That's
something
right.
fresh. And
That's
so I
right.
need that. They need that after recess. I
Mm-hmm.
remember my fifth grade teacher said, "You appreciate it when you grow up
Right.
to be able to take a nap, to lay your head down when you come
Right.
back to lunch." Definitely as an adult at work, I'm like, "Oh, can I just lay my head on the desk?"
Give me a break.
Yes. So for you, it seems like teaching actually never ends. I mean, because it just goes into one thing after another. So
Right.
after you finished your education career, then I know you've done a number of other things, but you know, centered around mentoring. So let's look at mentoring and how that's an offshoot of teaching.
Okay, so I was an administrator when I really got into mentoring, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I founded a mentoring program called SIP, SIP,
Okay.
and it was for girls. It was African American specific in a small town, and I started this program because in the community where I was living, I was observing a lot of teenage pregnancies. And like many, I found myself saying, this is a problem and somebody ought to do something about it. And one day, and everybody might not understand this, I think you would, but the Lord spoke to me and said, aren't you somebody? And I said, okay. And I mean, I have very clear remembrance of this. And this was in February during that year. And I have a tendency to be fairly spontaneous. And so I'll jump off and start something. But I promised the Lord that I would not move on that until He gave me direction because I couldn't figure out how I'm going to deliver this to whomever. And so that was again in February. In August of that year, I was living in Illinois. I had come to California on a visit. And I was on a plane going from San Francisco to Los Angeles when the Lord spoke to me and gave me direction. So when I got to Los Angeles and went to visit my girlfriend, we sat on her patio that night and I told her about this revelation and what I was going to do. So that was in August. Went back to Illinois, didn't do anything all of August, all of September. And my family would have family dinners. And so on this particular Sunday, we had dinner at my sister's. And after dinner, we're just kind of sitting around, not into very much. And my baby sister, who is now deceased, said, okay, Clara, it's time for you to talk. And she pulled up a legal pad and sat there with a pen and said, start talking. Tell us what we're going to do. And I dictated a statement of the problem, which was teenage pregnancy,
Right.
and a method of delivery. And we're going to deliver these 9 programs for kids, how to find people to deliver them, how we're going to evaluate our success, and what our purpose, statement of purpose. We use that document for the entire time we ran that program, and we ran it for 10 years. Never had any federal or state funding. If you were my friend, though, you might get begged into sponsoring a girl for an activity, or I had people who flew from California, from Chicago. We didn't have any money. You spent the night at my house and you delivered your program on Saturday and or Sunday for my girls. And I still mentor some of those girls who are now adults and have children, and some of them may even have grandchildren. And my 2 sisters and I ran the program, and then when my baby sister died, the other 2 of us did. None of us had a child eligible for the program when we started it. Not one. I have people who reach out to me and say, I really need a mentor. Are you willing to be a mentor? And I don't always say yes, because mentoring takes time.
Yes.
It takes commitment, and not just on my part, but on her part. Are you really willing to be mentored? And mentoring doesn't mean that I'm always saying yes to you, and I may not always be saying you're doing a great job. And so you need to understand what mentoring really is, and what is it that you want out of this. But I haven't, like I said, I haven't always said yes to everybody who has asked. It is still something I do. I don't have a lot of them right now, but I have enough because it's a commitment. If you're not willing to commit to the time, then I don't think you should do it. And with my girls program, so these girls were in high school, understand, junior high and high school. I went to their churches. I went to their basketball games, and if they were cheerleaders or their chorus things. And we did a thing kind of like Baby Think It Over, and some of my girls sang in the choir. Well, you can't, that week, you can't sing in the choir with a baby. So I sat in church with two red dolls in my arm the whole church service, but we needed to make it real. And again, but that's the commitment if you really are going to be into mentoring.
Right, because that's, helping them to reach levels that they didn't think that they could do.
Right,
Mentoring help push you beyond
right.
what you think that you can
Yes.
do yourself. And so now you've been in California for a number of years. Even when you've been in
23, I think.
23 years now.
23, uh-huh.
So did the education bring you here with Palo Alto?
Yes. East Palo Alto.
East Palo Alto. That is
Yes.
very distinct.
Big difference, yes. Yeah, I got recruited. Was not my plan for sure. I was getting ready to enter my 30th year of teaching in Illinois, which is the year when you secure your retirement. In February that year, Silicon Graphics Incorporated in Palo Alto scheduled me as the keynote speaker to end their Black History program. And that superintendent, Dr. Knight, was in the audience at that. And basically, the rest is history. She had her personnel director call me in the next few weeks, ask if I was interested in moving. My answer was no. And we debated for a couple of 3 months. I finally agreed to come to California to run her summer school program while I was trying to get my 7 Habits certification. So I had to fly back to Illinois 3 times during that summer. But anyway, got convinced by the time I left in August to come back and take an assistant superintendent's job. When I left Illinois, it was real challenging. The last 2 weeks that I was there, and I gave 6 weeks notice. The last 2 weeks that I was there, I wouldn't go to the grocery store. People would basically attack me. Why are you doing this? You're doing this to our kids, and how can you live? How can you desert these kids? It was awful. It was absolutely awful. And again, and I'm not a religious fanatic, but I do have a very close relationship with the Lord, and that's important. And I remember on this particular day, I said, Lord, you've got to help me because this is such a roller coaster. And I need to know that this is you talking to me because the devil talks to you too. And I don't want to make this kind of a move and have it be a mistake. And I asked the Lord if it was really meant for me to move, I needed my relocation expenses secured because typically school districts, they move superintendents, they don't move anybody below that. And so this is like 12:30, and at 2:30 that afternoon, I get a call from the superintendent herself, not personnel, saying, "Who is your moving contractor? We need to let the contract." And so that was my confirmation. And from that day to this, I've never looked back. So I went into that school district. It was culture shock for me. I came from a district that was a model for the state accountability system. And I had never seen single digit test scores, had never been in a district where they had more than one reading program. Our schools got out at 3:15, and my teachers went home often when it got dark, so I wasn't used to paying teachers to work after school. My teachers worked on Saturday and Sunday if that's what it took to get what we wanted done. And so it was culture shock for me. But I did spend almost 5 years there and made significant changes. And then got recruited by a national education company, Edison Schools, out of New York, and then did 10 years with them. So yeah, education is still important. But the thing is, remember I talked about expectations early on? Never, never, ever lowered my expectations for teachers or for principals or for kids or for parents. Never lowered my expectations. Yeah.
See, people are people no matter where they live.
That's
And
right.
so sometimes I think people think that, some people over here are smarter than other people that are over here. So
Right.
like for me, when I was a teenager and I moved from Compton, California to San Fernando, and I went from a 99% Black community to being the only Black kid in my class. You know, I thought that, you know, the students there were going to be so far advanced, so much smarter than me, because that's what I saw on television. But when I got there, you know, and all the things that they were learning, we had already learned.
Exactly.
And so, you know, I quickly rose to the top of the class. I wasn't trying to be, you know, teacher's pet or anything, but I was ready. Let's move on. You wasting my time. Because somebody answer a question, I'll answer it so we can go on. And so, but that goes back to sixth grade. 6 years old, Mrs. Benny, you know, helping to be that difference for me. And so I think sometimes people think that teachers are, you know, because they're paid, that they're really looking at how they're really giving back to the community. And so this episode, even talking with you, is all about giving back to the community, because the time that I've known you, you've been retired, but at the same time, you're constantly giving to young people, to adults like me, and, you know, to all the in just different arenas. And so you talked about, you know, culture. And so culture is important here. So you're in Tracy. It's Tracy African American Association. So you pulled me out of my retirement with working on as a treasurer when you were the president of that organization. So culture is important. And of course, the main focus that everything that we do is around, you know, raising money for scholarships for the next generation. So talk to me about your passion for culture and for youth still in a volunteering capacity.
So, first of all, I believe, and this is my brother's statement rather than mine, but I've also adopted it. I don't believe that white people's ice water is any colder than Black people's ice water. Okay? So we're all just people. And I grew up in a town that was only 12% African American. I had very few experiences as a teacher teaching African American kids. When I became a principal, I only had maybe 8% African American kids in my school. But that's a part of why I was willing to go to East Palo Alto, was because I thought I was going to a community that I would be able to influence more kids that look like me. That was a misnomer, because we weren't a very big part. That community was 77% Hispanic, but they were still children of color and children who were challenged, many of them impoverished. And the thing that I believed was that these kids could still learn. That's the important thing. So that's really important to me, no matter who you are or where you are or what you look like, doesn't determine whether or not you can learn. And I've done some public speaking to educators, and I know one of the things I have said in that is that being Black, being an English language learner, being poor, and I use one other one, these are not synonymous with being dumb. These are not handicaps. And so, but I also believe that we need to know our culture and appreciate our culture. And so, and we cannot learn it in the month of February or in 1 week or one program. And I'm an educated person, and I am very aware that I use proper English, and I think that is important. But sometimes when I do public speaking, especially if it is during February, I do some dialect poetry. And it's always shocking to people because they just don't expect me to do that. But what it does is it gives people, it's like it gives them permission to be Black. It's kind of like that. It's like it's okay, you know. But yeah, and I love doing it, but it took work to get to where I could do it, you know, and do it right and do it well.
But yeah, it's different. I know I was in Southern California one time at a conference, and one of the council members was concerned because I needed to go down the street to the ATM. I'm like, I'm not scared. So, but I had a whole different walk though. You know, I had a business walk, but when I walked down, it was like, don't even think about it, because I'm not the one.
Yeah.
So So it's great though that you continue though to give in various areas. So now I want to talk about TSA, Tracy Seniors Association. That's another
Uh-huh.
organization that you're a part of. So tell me
I
about your
am.
passion with the seniors and how you decide that you want to give to them as
Uh,
well.
You know what? It's interesting because today I watched your program with Brian Picari, and I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I went to one of his meetings for Tracy United to Make a Difference. And at that meeting, I met um, Kathy Bergfold and sat next to her at that meeting. And she invited me to, she was talking all about TSA and invited me to come to a meeting. So this was like in October, November. Anyway, I went in November, I think, to a meeting, and then I guess there was no meeting in December. Went to the January meeting and became vice president in February. So that's kind of how I got started. And so the program that we do is about senior citizens, and our goal, though, again, is to help people who need some help. Okay. So we provide things for low income seniors. We do a safety assessment in their home. And then we have been able to get some grants and get people to give us donations and to give us services. And so we're able to try to help seniors, low income in particular, to be safe in their homes, to keep them out of the hospital and out of nursing homes. And so that's our goal. So I decided to I'm a certified assessor. And again, it's about what can I do to be the difference? And so this is just one way to be the difference.
It's a lot of things that you're part of. I remember one day I was speaking at a graduation for a program that I had graduated from years before getting my doctorate. And a number of people had given little mini speeches before I spoke. And they talked about how, it was something very dramatic that happened in their lives before they finally gave in and said, okay, Lord, I'll do this for you, or I'll do that. And so for me, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm like Jeremiah, or whoever's like, whoever, send me, I'm looking for something to do that.
Do. Uh-huh.
I feel overwhelmed too, so many things. But when you have that heart to be the difference, you just see where there's a need
Right.
and you reach into that. And so there's a number of youth things that you're part of for a number of years. I know you were part of the student discovery program at Kimball High School. You and your husband David Styles taught 10th grade there, but then you're also a part of Sow a Seed. He in mentoring, does a lot of mentoring. So tell me about your role with Sow a Seed, because that deals with young people still right now.
It does, and which is why I'm a part of that. Is that it's about making a difference. It's about being the difference for these kids, and so it's easy for me to get involved in things. I have more difficulty saying no, even though I've gotten better at it lately. But I have trouble seeing a need and there not being somebody to step up and do it, then okay, I'll do it because this stuff is not social. It's not my social interaction. I have a social life. This is about business. And so with Sow a Seed, our business is kids. And so I've been on that board now for maybe 4 years. I've been vice president for the last 2 or 3 years. And I don't know how it is that I always seem to end up in leadership positions, maybe because my mouth is a bit big. I have a tendency to speak up, and I do have opinions. And my opinions are usually strong. But I also am a lifelong learner. So I like to learn things and I like to know things and I like to know them well. And I like to do things. I like to do the right things in the right way. I've heard you say it's never a wrong time to do the right thing. I think that's the way you say it. I'm not sure.
So
But
time to do
that's
right.
I agree. Right. So yeah. So it's about doing the right thing because it needs to be done. If not you, then who?
Absolutely. And that's good, a good way to think about it. And so, but as you're mentoring, you're actually helping to build the next generations because we won't be here forever.
That's
And so
right.
if
That's
we
right.
make the difference that we can, we're being the difference and showing others how to be the difference at the same time. So as we're talking about this today, I mean, it just inspires me. Sometimes I feel like I'm lazy, like I could be doing more. But
Right,
because
right.
there's so much that needs to be done out there. But then there are people who are just sitting back, not doing anything. And so I have met some people over the years that are getting to the point where they feel like, I have some extra time now. Maybe I should do something. And so, and
Mhm.
there's others that they don't feel like they owe it to anybody to do anything else. So, what would you say? What would you say to encourage someone who may be not involved in giving back to the community in any way? You don't have to jump in and do everything, but what would you say? Where to start?
So first of all, everybody can do something, and I can usually point you to a place where you can get involved. I don't know. Recently, I was talking to someone, and they were interested in senior citizens. I said, "Oh, I've got the thing because I'm a part of Tracy Senior Association. You want to work with mentoring kids, so." For example, Sow a Seed Community Foundation, you can do one-on-one mentoring. You don't want to be a part of the group, come on, I'll connect you here. You want to be a part of working in the schools. Well, I know Dr. Nancy Young, and she has this student discovery program. So it's really about, I guess, networking, and so connecting people. And I think that if someone is asking that, the more specific I can be with a suggestion, I think the better chance that they'll actually take me up on it.
When you're trying to find what your hands could do to help, then even in this COVID, then you begin reading the book. So one of the books, I wrote down a couple of them because I didn't want to forget which ones. As far as the one for sisters, she persisted.
Oh,
So
yes,
tell me how that has inspired you. I know that Chelsea Clinton wrote
that's
the
the
book.
book. The book that I did last week was called She Persisted. And again, the timing of it is given where we are in this world and the fact that presidential candidate Joe Biden has said that he's going to select a woman as his vice president candidate. It made sense then to talk about women and to encourage girls that you can do whatever you want, you can be whatever you want, be a trailblazer, go out there and do it. And so that was kind of what drove me to that one. Like for Mother's Day, right before that, I did Love You Forever. And for graduation, I think You Are Enough. But that's kind of how I choose the book, somewhat based on what's going on then. And then my goal is these are children's books. So my goal is that a child can listen to the book. You can, as a parent or grandparent, you can buy these books for your kids. But I'm also hoping, which I can't tell yet, that they are generating conversation. So it's not just a story, but it's a story with meaning behind it. And so she persisted again. It was inspired by Elizabeth Warren and written by Chelsea Clinton, and talks about 13 different women of various cultures, African American, European, Hispanic, Indian, Native American. And so again, no matter who you are, you can do, you can reach the mountaintop, and don't let anybody tell you no, which is what the book She Persisted really says. Don't listen to anybody tell you no. No.
I think we're at that
Like,
point in life where people can do whatever. I know you said if you could do it all over again, you'd be a lawyer. And see, for
right.
me, law is one of the things that I really wanted to do. But I thought, back then, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to do so much studying. But
Mhm.
didn't realize that I was going to be a lifelong learner anyhow. So might
Yep.
as well have did it. But I don't think my mind is sharp and quick enough to do that right now. Thank you so much for
You're
taking the
welcome.
time out of your many things to talk to me today about how your voice is making a difference by just giving back to our community. There's a number of other things that I personally know that you're involved in that I didn't mention. Some things just seem unreal, but it's true, because you are absolutely doing the difference. And just want to say thank you so much, and we'll be talking again.
Thank you, Nancy. And I certainly wish you lots of luck and Godspeed as you continue to be the difference in Tracy and the greater community and all that you do. I admire you. And like I said, I hope that you reach heights that even you haven't dreamed of yet.
Well, thank you. All right, so you're pushing me as my mentor. Okay, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
Now, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Again, thank you so much to Dr. Clara Styles for being our guest today on another episode of Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young. For truly, you are being the difference and making a huge difference across many communities as you have mentored many who fan out throughout the world. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode today, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young. And until next time, remember, your voice matters. If you have something positive to share and you would like your voice to be highlighted on Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young, please contact me at YVMwithnancy@gmail.com. And if you've enjoyed this programming, please hit the subscribe button right now. Thank you.